Power Hour with John Lee.
As I boom across the room to Elizabeth Holmes. Holmes here. Who's that? She is the woman who started the company called Theranos. Quite a famous case, but if you don't know, don't worry about it, because I'm going to tell you. She was born rich, actually. Certainly into a very comfortable family. And she grows up that way. There's nothing more to say about it, really. I don't know if she was good at tennis or not, but it's not particularly interesting. Then she goes to Stanford University, and she drops out because she's got an idea. And the idea is to create a mini lab, a drug testing machine, basically, where you get a little plastic needle like that, you put it into your finger, and the blood goes in, and then you put it back in the machine, and the machine scans your blood for thousands of different diseases and diagnoses you nice and early, so you can nip it in the bud. And this was great promise to the world, really, especially in America. And I'll tell you why. Because in America, the health industry, and that's what it is, it's not a service, it's an industry, is rapacious. It's predatory in itself. So if you want to take your kids to the hospital for a blood test, you've got to pay for that. And it's very expensive. And unless you know there's a problem, you're not going to the doctor. And maybe your insurance, even if you've got it, won't cover it. So, these companies, these corporations make tremendous amounts of money from people's fear that there might be something wrong with the child. Take the child to the hospital. Thank you. So Elizabeth Holmes saw this as an opportunity, and she created this machine that was going to fill that gap. And that's what she was selling. She was selling protection. I'm protecting you from disease, you being the people of the world. I'm protecting you from disease. And I'm also protecting you from these predatory healthcare and pharmaceutical companies, private hospitals and all that. I'm protecting you from the system, essentially. And the problem with the Theranos business model was that the box, the mini lab, was a pile of shit that didn't work at all, never. All the pieces were all crammed in together in this tiny little box, all warping each other and overheating. It never fucking worked. And she went round actually insisting on doing blood tests on cancer patients and then providing those results to the doctors just to boost this, the fame level of this box that didn't work. And that is evil, in my opinion. If you've just got a box, get the fuck out of the hospital. Get away from those cancer patients, right? We've all been touched probably one way or the other by cancer. Hopefully not, but most of us have in some way. And you need to get the fuck out of that hospital and stop trying to sell you shitty little box that does nothing. But she wouldn't. Raging psychopath. And she was obsessed with her own mythology before it even began. And she was apparently an amazing salesperson, even though she just looks like a freaky dancer to me. She was able to get tremendous amounts of money from really powerful people, generals like Mathis and people like that, Mad Dog Mathis, and political people like, the Clintons, for a start. Barack Obama loved her as well. Barack Obama made her the ambassador for entrepreneurship, American entrepreneurship. Barack, it's a fucking box. It does nothing. She's cured no one. She's diagnosed no one. She's produced nothing that works. And you're giving her, out of 320 million people, the honour of being the ambassador for entrepreneurship. Do a bit of homework, Barack. Doesn't even fucking work. So, as all this is growing, and people are starting to talk about her more, and she's this tremendous entrepreneur, the obvious comparison was made to Steve Jobs, because it's a technology company, essentially. and she's down there in Silicon Valley, and she's being, a tech wizard and all that. So let's compare her to Steve Jobs. Well, I don't think that's entirely fair, because Steve Jobs was operating on a totally different level. Andy was selling something that he understood. He was doing pure technology. That's Samsung, but you know what I mean. He was doing pure technology-based products, where she's actually trying to do healthcare products that are essentially technological advances. And she knows nothing about healthcare. She's not a doctor, no training whatsoever, no idea what she's talking about. But they start comparing her to Steve Jobs anyway, even though she's made nothing. And what does she do? Does she come out and say, look, you can't compare me to Steve Jobs? I've created nothing. I've helped no one. No, she starts putting on the, what's this called? The kind of jumper with a long neck like that. Polar neck, I think it's called. Started wearing the black polar neck like Steve Jobs. Started mimicking his poses, like with the little Theranos thing, giving it all this. She also had a fake voice. So she's been caught in interviews where she starts talking like that and then go, roar, and she deepens her voice. Now, I actually have sympathy with that, because if she felt that she was a lone girl in a man's world down in Silicon Valley and nobody was going to take her seriously, and she was only 21, 22, she might have made the decision to start talking in a deeper voice. And then once you started, you can't really stop, because that's your voice, apparently. So I won't pick on her for that. A lot of people do laugh at her for that. But what I object to is conning people around the world into thinking that you've got a machine that they can buy for $1,000, like a really good microwave, and keep it in the kitchen and protect the families from disease, when you know for a fact that that's not true. And eventually, all the pressure, all the pressure built up inside the company, outside the company. She was just making too many enemies, making a lot of people jealous as well. And the house of cards started to shake, and it became apparent that she was lying, that the machine didn't work, and it had never worked, and it couldn't work. And she was falsifying reports and falsifying results. And this is very serious. You're talking about illness worldwide here. You're not talking about painting a car. This is really serious stuff. And she gets busted, basically. Another one gets thrown out of the bus, or under it and out of it, because there was a Wall Street Journal article describing the fraud and what she was doing. And this exposed her. And she attacked the Wall Street Journal, but it was proven and demonstrated that she was actually full of shit. And I think she was actually a psychopath. I really do. I don't think she had any compunctions, any compassion at all. She was just in her own mind with the massive eyes, if you see it like that. Oh, yeah, it's a brilliant box, But anyway, she was arrested. She was charged. And she's supposed to be looking at 20 years. But as of this recording, she's living in San Francisco in the lap of luxury. And I've actually seen a video of her walking a dog in the park, just to take the piss. So now we're going to rock to Kenneth Copeland. And what's he selling? He's selling salvation. So who's Kenneth Copeland, and why is he selling salvation? He is an evangelical preacher, right? Who talks to God on a regular basis, apparently. And where's he from? He's from Texas. Right. Don't know about his financial situation growing up. I know he knew that he lived near an airport, and he was inspired to be a pilot. Went to Vietnam as a pilot and as a soldier, and won the Silver Star for bravery. All right. Fair enough. Brilliant. Nothing to say about that. Maybe something happened to him in Vietnam. I'm not sure. But when after the Vietnam War, he got into religion and preaching, and Pentecostal Baptist style religious preaching, and he had a talent for it, and he became very successful and made a lot of money. And he's what they call a prosperity preacher. So he preaches that God and Jesus want you to be rich. And more than that, they want him to be rich. And he knows that because God tells him. You know, they have regular chats. And what's amazing to me is that people believe him. And this is what I'm talking about. We're talking about people who are desperate to believe. Because if I said to you, right, I was having a sandwich in my kitchen last night and Jesus Christ came in and said, John, get some fucking mustard on that. And where's your beer? And I said, all right, nice one, Jeesh. When you're right, you're right. You know, you would not believe me. You'd probably shout, bollocks. And you'd be absolutely right. And I'm only talking about, you know, mustard on a butty and a can of beer. This guy reckons that Jesus and God demand the poorest people in the poorest people in the world give their money to this billionaire so that this billionaire can have a new jet. He's already got a jet, but he wants a new one. And God demands that the poorest people in the world, especially all around Africa, pay for this jet. And when you look at where this guy lives, he lives in his own compound. This is not a house, it's a compound. And he's got an airport. He's got his own private airport with a hangar and a runway. And he lives in, you know, opulent decadence, right? And you won't find any poor people there. You won't find a clinic. You'll just find this dickhead getting on his jet and flying it around. And he does fly his own jet. So there's a great scene, which I think explains exactly who this person is, where he's talking on the God channel to Jesse Duplantis, who's another one, because there is this network of preachers that go on each other's shows and support each other like comedians do at each other's gigs, if you want. And Jesse Duplantis is one of them, and they're talking about how they both need a jet, they both need a new plane, so they can talk to God on it, because apparently you can't talk to God on a commercial flight because there's too many people there, and it's just a bit cringe. And Kenneth Copeland says, oh yeah, you're in a big tube filled with demons. So that's how he sees normal people, as demons. Now, I don't know if he's a mentalist or not. I think he might be. Maybe something happened to him in Vietnam. Maybe he found Jesus in some way in Vietnam, and that, you know, he's got PTSD from that war. I don't know what he believes and what he doesn't believe. But if he believes what he's saying, he's absolutely crazy. But that's not a problem for me. What the problem is that he, in his craziness or whatever, in his perversion of some kind, he's seen that there are people around the world who are desperate to be saved. They're desperate for salvation. They're really scared of going to hell, and they're scared of the children going to hell. And the sicker they become, and the closer to death they become, and the poorer they become, the more desperate they are. And so they're more willing to give this fucking idiot money. And he really looks like a serpent from the gates of hell. And yet they still believe in him. And they're seeing him on the jet, and they're seeing his house. And there's nothing else you could do to convince these people that he's a charlatan and a liar. They just won't accept it. And the system actually benefits this guy and his ilk as well, because these churches are tax-free entities. And the houses that they live in are called parsonages. It's a parsonage. So it's part of the church. So the church pays for it. So nothing comes out of Kenneth Copeland's private bank account to pay for his house and his planes and all that. It's paid for by the church, and the church gets its money from people. And that is tax-free. Right? So it's a pure scam, and it's actually supported and facilitated by the system, by the state itself. And he thinks all this is hilarious. He's constantly laughing his head off. You know, I want a new jet. And he's laughing. He thinks it's hilariously funny because he knows he's going to get it. And he was most recently in the news for apparently healing COVID-19. And that was last year. And I can tell you, I'm here in Spain with a shit haircut, and I can't go for lunch because the whole place is shut down. Right? But Kenneth Copeland was busily healing COVID-19 on television last year, and you can actually watch him do it like that, blowing COVID-19 off the planet.
In the name of Jesus. Oh, thank Thank you, Jesus.
Standing in the office of the prophet of God, I execute judgment on you, COVID-19.
Oh, Ramash.
I execute judgment on you, Satan, you destroyer, you killer. You get out, we break your power, you get off this nation. I demand judgment on you. I demand a vaccination to come immediately.
Yes.
So yeah, fuck off, Ken. You know, give all the money to the people in Africa and see what impact that has. You can fly it over on your plane.